But you see, one of the things that you discover in the practice of meditation, especially if you are making yourself available to the teaching that goes with the practice, one of the things that you discover is that the way to control the mind is not to control the mind, right? The way to control the mind is to let the mind do what the mind does, but to withdraw your attention from it. That's what you're practicing. And when you withdraw your attention from it and you put your attention on the breath, the energy of the mind begins to wind down naturally. It's feeding on your attention. Your attention is energy. It's feeding on your attention. And so by practicing meditation, you're practicing being aware of this voice in your head called the mind, and you're practicing moving attention away from the voice in your head. And by doing that, the mind gradually, naturally calms down. An analogy for this that's often given is if you take a bottle of water that has sand in it and you shake it, right? The water becomes cloudy with the sand, just like your mind becomes cloudy when it's active, right? Thoughts are the sand, right? But when you put the bottle down and you don't move it, the sand begins to drop to the bottom and the water becomes clear. And this is the same thing with the mind, okay? And so that's why it's important to have a teacher and a guide in meditation, because without that, if you were to try and practice on your own and these things come up, you just get frustrated and confused, right? And so it's not a good idea to try and practice meditation on your own. In the beginning, for any people who attempt to practice meditation, they use guided meditations, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Guided meditations are like training wheels on a bicycle, right? In the beginning, you have training wheels on the bicycle so that you have something to keep you up and balanced, to keep you from falling, right? The problem is the longer you stay with guided meditation, you become dependent on guided meditation, and you think that is meditation, and then you really never move on to really what is meditation, because what real meditation is not guided meditation. And you don't hear a lot about what I'm saying because this is a business, right? And so people who want you to buy their apps and want you to, go to retreats or buy their books, they're not going to necessarily tell you the real deal, because if you're dependent on what they have to offer, then it's a commercial success. So, in this class, I'm trying to be a little more efficient in how we do things here. Over the years that I've been teaching this class, and then I've been doing these talks after the practice, I've been sharing with people these ancient wisdom teachings that are the material that is to be practiced when you're doing the meditation. Because the purpose of the meditation as it is being taught here and as it is being practiced in many of the Eastern religions, and really in any religion in the mystical form of it, is intended to allow you to come out of confusion, to come out of suffering, to come out of the state of mind and the emotional condition that most of humanity lives in, and discover a possibility that exists. So, if you're new to this class, something that can help you kind of catch up to what we're talking about here, right? Because it's an impossible situation for me to talk to people who are brand new and have people here that have been here for years. They're in a completely different place, right? And so I can't do two conversations at once, right? So if you're new, what I would recommend that you do is take one of my cards, because since I've been teaching this class, I wrote a book that is the essential teachings that I speak of here, which is available on Amazon. So you could get a hold of the book and then read the book. and that would catch you up to what I'm talking about here. The other thing is I started a YouTube channel, right? So all of the talks that I've done in the last few years are on the channel, and that's why I'm recording this. And if you take my card and you send me an email, I will send you the location of the YouTube channel, so you could go there. There's about 190 talks there, right? And you could go to Amazon and get the book. It's not, I think it's a couple of dollars. I didn't price it to make money. It's called Dying to Live. And then you could read that, and then you would know a lot more about what's going on here and about what these teachings are. And then you would also have an idea what you're practicing when you're practicing meditation. Because meditation is not, see, this is the thing. Meditation is not sitting still, paying attention to your breath. That is not meditation. And yet that is what most people understand it to be, because that's the product that is sold. That's not what meditation is. Meditation is actually being aware, experiencing what it's like to be aware, experiencing what it's like to be awareness, it's experiencing what it's like to see the truth, to see things as things actually are. And by seeing things as they actually are, there's a possibility that begins to come into play, right? And the possibility, here's what's possible for you as a human being. And you may have never heard this before, which is amazing. What's possible for you as a human being, and use your imagination, just imagine this, just fantasize this. What's possible for you as a human being to actually be happy without a reason. It's possible for you as a human being to experience your life moment to moment with no complaints about anything. It's possible for you as a human being to have no regrets about anything that's happened in the past. It's possible for a human being for you to have no fear of anything that will happen in the future. It's possible for a human being to not have to figure anything out. It's possible for a human being to be at home and at ease at all times in your life. This is a real possibility. And when you hear things in the East, or when you hear people talk about things like enlightenment, that's really what they're talking about, right? Enlightenment is freedom, freedom from a condition that human beings are living in which the world you see and who you are is at odds with the truth. Living in an experience in which the world you see and who you're being are at odds with the truth. Therefore, you're upset most of the time. Therefore, you can't even deal with the weather, right? Because if you wake up in the morning according to your conditioning and it's raining, the weather report says it's nasty. If you're a farmer, you don't see rain as being nasty, because if it didn't rain, you're in big trouble, right? But if you're just a regular urban citizen who's been conditioned by the weather report on the news, you get up in the morning, if it's raining, already you're having a bad day, just because water's falling from the sky. That's one little tiny idea about how suffering is a consistent reality for humanity. The definition of suffering in terms of this possibility is that if you were to experience the possibility that I'm referring to, there would be no suffering. You would not suffer, right? And the reason there would be no suffering is because you would see the truth, you would see how things really are, you would see who you really are, and there would be no conflict. There'd be no conflict. You would never be upset because you would never expect anything to be different than it is. That seems so obvious when you look at it, right? You would never suffer because you would never have a different version of reality than the way reality actually is. Right? You wouldn't have an expectation in terms of how other people should be. You wouldn't have an expectation in terms of how you would be. You wouldn't have an expectation of how it should be. You wouldn't have an expectation about how it should have been. You wouldn't have an expectation about how it should be. That's real freedom. You could just allow yourself to be what you are, really are, and for most people, they have no clue what that is. And you could allow life to be what life really is, and for most people, they have no clue what that is. So in order to see things as they are, and in order to be what you actually are, you have to come out of the sleep. You have to come out of the mental state. You have to get free from this conditioning that you've been subject to. You have to come out of the trance. You have to come out of the hypnotism that you've been subject to. And meditation is a way to do that, right? Because in meditation, you're sitting still, you're moving attention away from the thought stream, which is where the conditioning is running all the time. That's the voice in your head telling you what's going on, keeping you crazy. And so you're sitting still, you're moving attention away from the thought stream, relaxing the body, and the thought stream, the thought process starts to slow down, starts to get quieter. And as it slows down and it starts to get quieter, you begin to see what's really happening. Because you're not using the voice in your head to know what's going on anymore. You're actually looking at it. You're actually seeing that it's just water falling from the sky. And so you begin to learn that this voice in your head is not necessarily your friend. It's giving you information that is not consistent with reality. And as long as you think that that is you, you're crazy. So that's one of the first teachings in these teachings, is to become aware and notice that you are not the voice in your head. Almost all of humanity doesn't know that. That's amazing. It's amazing. And it's not hard to see that it's true. All you have to do is look and see, do you know what that voice is going to say before it says it? If you don't, how can it be you? Why would you have to look to see what it says to know what you're saying, what you're thinking? This is so obvious when you look at it, right? If the voice in your head was you, you could just turn it off when it was time to go to bed, couldn't you? But it keeps you up. If the voice in your head was you, would you say anything negative about yourself? Would you judge yourself harshly? Would you hate yourself? Obviously not, right? But the voice in your head does judge you, does say negative things about you, does actually hate you for many people. And that becomes so disturbing, so upsetting for some people, that they kill themselves to stop it. That's real tragedy, right? And the thing that's most tragic about suicide is that when people kill themselves, they're just making a mistake. Because if you're going to kill yourself, you first have to know who you are so you know what to kill. But most people have no clue what they are. They think they're their body, so they figure, I'll kill the body, right? But the most stupid thing about suicide is the notion that it can work. Because if the reason you're killing yourself is to get relief, right? If the reason you're killing yourself is to get relief from your suffering, you won't be there to experience any relief. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And the thing about it that makes it more crazy is that if you did know who you are, right, and this is what the teachings are all about, discovering who you really are. If you did know who you really are, well, I have to modify that. If you did know who you think you really are, right, then what you would know is that you're this personality. You're this psychological personality. You're this self-image, right? You're this idea called me that has a name and a story and a history. That's what people think they are, right? And if you did really know that that's what you think you are, by the way, that's not what you really are, but that's part of the learning process. But at least if you identified that that's what you really are, that you're not your body, you're this concept about yourself, you're this me, you're this story, you're this person, then you could have something more realistic to kill than to kill the body. The body's just the vehicle, right? The body's not who you are. Who you are is the idea you have about yourself. So if you go to kill that, you have a better shot of succeeding at suicide, right? Because that's more true than that you're your body, right? But if you go to kill that and you really pursue the process of suicide, what you'll come to see, because then the question becomes, well, how do I kill that, right? How do I kill that? I can kill something that's physical, but how do I kill this personality? How do I kill this psychological idea? How do I kill this identity that I have considered myself to be? How do I kill that? Well, if you really pursue it, what you come to see is that it doesn't require any action at all to kill it. Because what you come to see is that it's not real to begin with. You don't have to kill an idea. An idea is not physical. You don't have to kill a self-image. A self-image is something that got created when you were a kid. You know, the name you were given, the family you were born into, the experiences you had that had you learn about yourself, had you learn who you are and what you are. And if the time comes that you want to kill that, all you have to do is see that it never actually existed. Not really. And as soon as you see that it's not real, it's dead. That's it. You succeeded at suicide. Now, then the question becomes, okay, so what's left? Well, in this version of suicide, you can succeed because you are still there to experience the relief, right? The relief of what? The relief of being this limited, separate self that has all these negative ideas, that has all these wishes, that has all these expectations, right? That's separate from everybody else, that's separate from the world, that's afraid to die. That is what comes to an end. The one that has all the expectations. The one that thinks when it's raining, it's nasty. That comes to an end. And then what's left? What's left is the freedom to simply be what you really are, which is awareness itself, and be present to the way it really is. And when you experience that, you realize there's no conflict between me and the world, because who I really am as awareness itself is like the space in this room. Does the space in this room have a problem with your being here? Does the space in this room have a problem with anything that happens in the room? If you're like the space in this room, then it means that who you really are doesn't have a problem with anything. You can let everything be the way it is, and then there's no suffering. So this is just a little bit of an introduction. Those of you who have been here for a while are familiar with what I'm talking about, because in the talks that I've given in the past and the talks that I will give in the future, I break it down a lot more into details of how this all is, right? So if you're interested in learning more and continuing to come and practice and establish a practice, see me and get my card, and then you can send me an email and I'll give you the information you need to see the videos on YouTube or get the book. And then I also have a Wednesday 5 p.m. Zoom meditation practice that you can come to if you choose to do that. Okay? Have a good day.